single day. I'm gonna make something great.
Hello everyone and welcome to Hope Base. This is a place where we share stories of people who have survived one form of abuse or another in order to encourage those who are going through similar situations to find hope and strength to overcome their challenges. If you have survived domestic violence, if you have survived emotional abuse, if you have survived child abuse, if you have survived sexual abuse, whatever form of abuse whatsoever, and you want to share your story to encourage others, feel free to write in. Our email address is thehopebase@gmail.com. Today we have a story from Rose. Rose wrote in from Lagos, and she wants us to share her story because someone out there might need her story as a source of encouragement. But before we dive right in, let's go for a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I met Fidel when I went to do full video coverage for a wedding ceremony where he was the best man. Photography was something I always wanted to do, and I'm glad that my dreams came to reality. My parents frowned at it at first. According to them, photography is not a profession for ladies. But their worldview changed when I started getting local and international photography jobs. Fidel was fascinated by my level of professionalism in handling the camera at the wedding that he asked for my contact. I did not hesitate to share it with him. He told me briefly about a project that they were planning and how he wants me on board the project. I was excited. Most of my gigs have come that way. I end up meeting clients while executing one project or another. A week later, Fidel called me and asked me to meet with him in his office. That day I was terribly engaged that I pleaded with him to reschedule. We met the next day in his office, and seeing how neat and well organized his gigantic office was, I was quite impressed. I'm a perfectionist, by the way. I like things organized and well thought out. Nothing pisses me off like when things are not where they should be. I broke up with my ex because he was not organized at all. He was quite a talented musician, but Daniel could go a whole day without bathing. He always had the wrong timing for everything. He was a great guy though, but he wasn't exactly my picture of a perfect mate. Fidel served me a cup of coffee while he sat to explain the project in details. You can't help but like him. He was very composed and articulate. Their company was hosting a leadership summit, and he wanted me to handle the entire coverage of the event. He was a project development manager of the firm. Together we drew a detailed plan for the event, and he told me how much I was going to be paid for it, which was by far the largest sum I had received for a video coverage. We achieved quite a lot that day, except for his fiancée that kept calling every 20 minutes. It was funny how he would excuse me and go to a corner in the office to pick her call. At one point, he got really mad on the phone and told her that she was interrupting an important meeting. Fidel is a very quiet guy, but his sudden change in tone took me aback. When he came back, he apologized for the way he sounded on the phone. He lost concentration all of a sudden. Then we stopped working for a while and got more personal. He told me it was his fiancée and that he didn't like how she calls every minute of the day to check up on him. He asked for a sincere advice since I'm a woman and that I will understand better. In his words, "Is that how you call your boyfriend from time to time to check up on him?" Well, I told him that I don't have a boyfriend and that even if I do, I will be so busy to put a call through every minute, and that it will seem as though I'm monitoring him, and men obviously don't like that. You see what I'm talking about? I have told Folake times without number that her calls are distracting, but she would not listen, he replied. His frustration was obvious. I could tell from his countenance that he was choking. So I advised him to be a little more patient with her. I asked him if she works and he said yes, but that her work was not so demanding. I told him to get her to trust him more, that it could be a carryover from her past relationship. Then he admitted that she was actually in a relationship where she would caught her ex several times cheating on her with another woman. Now she sees all men in that light. He told me how he had given her every reason to trust him. He told me how he took her to every event and even made her reply his messages. What more can I do, he added. I felt his pain. Fidel was an honorable man. In my head, I thought of how overprotective my ex was of his phone. I could touch every other thing he had, but not his phone. That was a no-go area. He even had passwords for everything. One day I confronted him with it and he just gave flimsy excuses. I just let it pass because I didn't want to argue. Well, I told Fidel to spend more time with her and also call her every time he is less busy, that it will go a long way to instill more trust in her. He thanked me and we went back to work. I left the office quite late after a sumptuous lunch he fed me with. He called from time to time to follow up on the preparation for the summit. The leadership summit was a huge success, and instead of the amount we agreed, Fidel added 50% of the exact amount to it. Aside the money, he kept thanking me till I became embarrassed. He told me how he would want to work with me again. I told him I wouldn't hesitate to. The summit had ended, but Fidel never stopped calling. Sometimes he would even call late at night. At a point, I felt he was spending more time with me than he was with his fiancée. So I started ignoring his calls. Although he didn't say anything that suggested that he was hitting on me, but I wasn't comfortable with the closeness. He noticed I was avoiding his calls, and one day he just showed up at my office unannounced. I was surprised because it was on a Monday, and you know how busy Mondays can be. Fidel left everything just to see me. He asked why I was distancing myself from him. I didn't hesitate to tell him the truth, that I respect the fact that he was in a relationship and that he should be spending more time with his fiancée rather. I must admit that I enjoyed his company, but if that was a sacrifice I have to make for not coming in between him and Folake, then it was worth it. We broke up, he replied, looking into my eyes. I was shocked to hear that. When? How? Was it because of me? I asked. He told me I had nothing to do with it, that he couldn't cope with her nagging attitude, that he lost his peace ever since he met her. He told me how he stopped being himself and even lost friends because of her. To be honest, Fidel was a lot different. You can tell from his countenance how free he was. You could almost feel it. Well, I told him to take his time before going into any other relationship. I noticed his countenance dampened when I said that. I guess he thought I would jump into his arms, but that was not the case. I'm not attracted to light-skinned guys, even though he was a cool guy. We were good friends for over a year. We even did more jobs together, and there were times when we would walk into the night and even slept in the same hotel room, but nothing happened. He did make advances though, but I was plainly not interested. One day he woke me up to wish me a happy birthday. He sang this beautiful song to me over the phone. I was blown away. By the way, I forgot to mention that he is a songbird. He is quite good, and sometimes I wonder why he didn't pursue a career in music. Nobody had ever made me feel that way. Even my ex that was a musician never sang to me. I felt special. From that day, I started giving him some consideration. It wasn't too long, we started dating. Fidel was a great guy. He would call me from time to time to find out how I was doing. He sent me loads of flowers and cards. I loved everything about him, except for his complexion. But that was okay because we can't really have everything. Let's go for a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll continue the story. Stay glued. Welcome back. 6 months later, he proposed. I had organized a festival for photographers in West Africa, and Fidel was there as one of the guest speakers. The festival saw over 5,000 photographers in attendance. When it was Fidel's turn to speak, he took me completely unawares and proposed to me in front of 5,000 witnesses. I was shocked and shy at the same time. But how in the world can anyone say no to such a proposal? I let go of my shyness and ran into his arms with the emphatic yes. He decorated my finger with the beautiful engagement ring and kissed me. It was the happiest moment of my life. The following week, his parents came to meet my parents. It was a beautiful union. His parents were easygoing people. His father was a retired engineer who now owns a huge cocoa farm somewhere in Benin City. And his mother is a lecturer in a state university. We got married 3 months after, and in less than 1 year, our marriage was blessed with our precious jewel, Isabel. For 6 months after having Isabel, Fidel insisted that I should stay at home to take care of our daughter. After 6 months, I was already bored of staying at home. He would always go to work in the morning and come back late in the night. I wasn't bothered because I knew how demanding his job could be, but I needed to also go out and work. Fidel had talked about how he would love for me to be a full housewife while he worked his ass out to take care of our home, but I objected to that. I wasn't brought up that way. I grew up with the mentality that a woman is meant to assist her husband in every aspect, including financially. He always talked about how his salary was enough to take care of our family, but I have never believed in salaries. What if the salary ceases? After a few arguments going back and forth, we employed a nanny to take care of Isabel while I went back to work. Fidel wanted us to have another baby ASAP, but that didn't happen. 4 years after having Isabel, I couldn't conceive another baby. We went for different appointments with our doctor, but he kept saying that there was nothing wrong with us. One day, Fidel came home earlier than usual, sad. I served him dinner and he refused to eat. I have never seen him like that before. Every attempt to get him to talk proved abortive. The following morning, I ran him a warm bath and woke him up to take his bath. And to my surprise, he said he wasn't going to work. I asked what was going on and he said he was relieved of his job. I was shocked. According to him, they were downsizing and he was affected. Fidel was the last person that would be relieved of his job. He was very hardworking. He was obviously set up. I insisted that he told me exactly what happened, and he told me about one of the keyboard members that was hitting on him. He believed she had something to do with it. I was not happy that he hid such an important detail from me. At least as his wife, I would have prayed with him or something. He just said he didn't think it was important, and besides, he had everything under control. That was when everything changed. Fidel had a hard time coming to terms with the fact that I had to leave for work every morning while he stayed back at home to scout for jobs. His pride got the better part of him. He started becoming angry at every little thing. I told him it was only temporary and that things would normalize, but he just couldn't bear to see me provide for the family alone. He thought about what people would say and stuffs like that, but I didn't see why he was making a mountain out of a molehill. I was also helping him to look for jobs. I even suggested that he can be coming with me to the office, that there are a lot of things he could assist with pending when he secures a job, but he refused, saying that that was the height of irresponsibility. I even told him that since he could sing so well, why not consider following his passion? He just laughed and said, "Sing at my age?" I told him there were countless stars that came to limelight in their 40s. He just didn't want to hear that. One day, a friend told me that there was an opening in their company for a dispatcher. It was an international company and the pay was quite good. But I told her that I wasn't sure that Fidel would like it, but that I would discuss it with him. When I told Fidel about it, hell was let loose. He rained all the insults there is on me and made me look stupid. I told him that I wasn't saying he should pick the job, that it was only a suggestion. He said I had insulted him for even suggesting it. He kept saying I was looking down on him and I would never do a thing like that. He got so close to becoming physical, but he controlled himself. I was heartbroken. I knew he was frustrated. He had practically worked every day of his life since he graduated from the university, so this was new to him. But you know, life is not always about ups. There are downs too, and that was what Fidel never wanted to understand. Our communication began to dwindle. I lost the Fidel I fell in love with, and I wanted him back by all means. Meanwhile, I was thinking of expansion in my business. I wanted to fully launch a modeling agency since I had everything I needed, the contacts and the structure. So I told Fidel about it, and instead of him to encourage me, he kicked against it. He said how it would consume my time, blah, blah, blah. I went ahead anyways. So I put on an audition for models and employed a modeling coach. That week, I signed on a few models, 3 well-built men and 3 ladies. The following week was quite busy. We did a lot of indoor and outdoor shoots. Amidst all my successes, I was still not happy because Fidel was still having a hard time securing a job. I asked him if he could talk to his father about it. Since he was well placed, he could be in a better position to assist. And to my greatest surprise, he said, "I forbid you to do that." To be honest, I didn't know what had gotten over him. He said he doesn't go about sharing his problems with anybody. But I told him his father is not just anybody, and besides, he has connections. He just walked away and refused to talk more about it. I wasn't comfortable with this side of him. It is true what they say, that it is when the chips are down that you will know a man's true color. I wish I knew this side of him before we got married. At least I would have known if it was something I could handle or not. I came out from the bathroom one night and saw him going through the pictures of one of the male models in my laptop. He had never done that before. Then he began to ask me about the model. I told him he was one of the models I had signed up recently. Then he accused me of not picking up his calls earlier because I was with him. I was mad that he would say a thing like that. We got into a heated argument and then he slapped me. I was still trying to recover from the slap when another one came on my left cheek. Then I passed out. I woke up a few minutes later in the hospital. The doctor told me I had passed out because I was 2 weeks pregnant. Fidel was so sorry he lifted his hands on me. He begged for forgiveness and well, I forgave him. He said it would never happen again and I believed him. At least I believed he would never dare lift a finger on me again, considering that I was pregnant. It took about a week before I was able to resume work again. For that 1 week I was in heaven. Fidel treated me like a queen, but it was only short-lived. As soon as I got back to work, his mood changed again. Then it became obvious that the only thing that would make Fidel happy was when he's on top, as if we were in a competition. I never stopped respecting him even for 1 second. One day I got back from work and everywhere was a hot mess. He refused to allow the nanny to clean the house. He waited for me to come back and ordered me to clean the house. I was so exhausted, but I changed into my house clothes and cleaned the house for peace to reign. Nothing I did pleased Fidel anymore. He simply found fault in everything I did. The only thing on my mind the whole time was how I would help him secure a job. I decided to talk to his father without his notice. His father was angry that Fidel could keep such a thing from him. I pleaded with him not to tell Fidel I told him. He agreed. So his father came up with a plan. He visited, and during his visit, he asked Fidel why he never told him that he was relieved of his job. Fidel asked how he found out, and he told him that he had gone to his workplace and they told him he didn't work there anymore. I was relieved that his father would come up with that story. But on the other hand, I was not happy that I had to go behind him to do that. Marriage is all about transparency, and this was not ideal. His father promised to help, and then he left the next day for the first flight to Benin. Fidel looked at me and said, "If I find out you have something to do with this, you will be in trouble." How can I be in trouble for trying to help? I used to read stories of women who have been abused, and I never believed I would one day find myself in this situation. My father-in-law kept his promise and got a job for Fidel, but he rejected it because the pay was small. What he wanted literally was a job that paid higher than what he was earning, so that he will always be on top as he has always been. Competition is not healthy in relationships. It was killing me on the inside. All the same, I sent a message to my father-in-law and thanked him for helping him and pleaded with him to keep looking for a better paid job for Fidel. After sending the message, I forgot to delete it. Fidel had cultivated the habit of looking through my messages. It's not that I was against him reading my messages, but his motive was wrong. I started living under fear, which was the last thing I ever wanted in life. My dream of a blissful marriage was shattered. The next morning, I was in the kitchen making breakfast when I heard Fidel screaming my name from the bedroom. I thought something serious had happened. He just zoomed into the room with my phone in his hand. Then I knew he had seen the text message. He asked why I told my father about it, and I told him I was only trying to help. He was furious. He said I was washing our dirty linen in public. He smashed my phone on the ground and raised his hand to slap me. Just then, Isabel walked into the kitchen and witnessed the drama. Fidel walked away without saying a word. Isabel asked why I was fighting with Daddy. I told her that we were not fighting, that everything was fine. Putting Isabel through this was the height of it. She was just too young to witness this. It would linger in her memory for life. I went into the bedroom and confronted Fidel with it. I told him that what he did was wrong, that we were not setting a good example for Isabel. Instead of admitting that what he did was wrong, he just got up, pouted, and walked away from me. Later that day, I got a new phone because he had smashed my phone beyond repair. I was literally living in hell, but I dared not tell anyone about it. I knew people who envied us, not knowing what I was going through. In the eyes of people, we were the best couples, but that was far from the truth. I thought of calling it quits, But then again, I thought about the 5,000 people that witnessed his proposal. I thought about Isabel and our unborn child. I thought about the people that looked up to us. But how long would I sacrifice my peace on the altar of marriage? I did everything for peace to reign, but it was clear that Fidel didn't want that. I spoke with my mom about it and I heard exactly what I expected. Every marriage has its ups and downs. It's not a bed of roses. You definitely pass this phase. My mother went on to tell me that she and my dad have had their share of hard times, but that they were still together after 33 years. She told me how God hated divorce and that we should find a way to work it out. I stopped going to work as often as I did, so I would spend more time with Fidel. I surfed the internet from time to time and submitted his CV to several companies, but still no luck. When I told him that maybe it was time for him to set up something, that I would support him financially, but he got mad. He said, "So you will run and tell people how you helped me start up my business?" No way. I gave up. I gave up trying to help because nothing I ever said or suggested made sense. I began to wonder what my role in his life was, a piece of furniture or a helpmate. Let's go for a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll continue the story. Stay glued. Welcome back. The following day was my birthday, so I wanted to spend the day with Fidel. I thought that day would be the perfect day to iron things out with him and get back the Fidel I married. I dressed Isabel for school and the nanny came and took her to school. So I was alone with Fidel. He didn't remember it was my birthday, and I was hoping he would. I even gave him hints, but he did not get it. I made breakfast for us to eat, but we just sat there and ate with no words uttered. Later, he broke the ice by asking why I didn't go to work. I told him that I wanted to spend time with him, and he asked why. He said it's not as if he's sick. Well, I told him that our marriage was sick and needed healing, and that I wanted him back. All of a sudden, he stopped eating and stood up to walk away. Then I held his hands and told him that I didn't want us to fight anymore, that all I wanted was peace. He removed my hands and said the last thing he wanted was for anyone to feel pity for him. He said he knew I would be thinking in my head how irresponsible he was to sit at home all day doing nothing. I felt so bad to hear that. If only he knew how much I respected him. I told him I would be the last person to think that way. Then he said he doesn't believe me. The doorbell rang and he went to check who was at the door. It was a dispatch rider who had come to deliver my birthday gift. That was how he remembered it was my birthday. Instead of him to be sorry and wish me happy birthday, he was more interested in who sent the gift. I looked through it and told him it was from one of the models I had signed up. He became furious. He asked if I was seeing him. I couldn't stand it. I was angry that he would even think of something like that. I told him I was disappointed in him to even think like that. I wasn't interested in continuing the conversation. It was draining me. So I walked away. He followed me and kept saying, "Answer me. Are you seeing that bastard?" Then I turned and told him to his face that I am not going to answer that and that he can do whatever he wanted to do. Then I told him that instead of him to apologize for forgetting my birthday, that he was trying to be defensive. I had barely finished what I was saying when a call came into my phone. I tried to pick it, but he snatched the phone from me and cut the call and insisted that he was still talking to me and that he needed a reply. I told him I couldn't believe that this was happening. The call came in again. It was from a different client I was expecting to call. Then I told him to give me my phone, that I needed to pick the call, that it was important, but he refused. I tried to take my phone from him and he pushed me. As soon as I fell to the ground, he just jumped on me and began to hit me on the face. I screamed for help, but of course nobody would hear me because we were occupying a duplex and we were the only ones in the building. Fidel kept hitting my face and kicking me until, from nowhere, I saw a man walking in. I was dizzy, so I couldn't tell who came in. All I knew was that he engaged the man in a fight, and then I passed out. Then I found myself in a very dark place. All I could hear was the sound of a heart monitor. It kept going low and low till it faded away and I couldn't hear anything anymore. Suddenly, I started hearing the sound of a mighty wave from a far distance. I knew I was walking, but I didn't know where I was going. Suddenly, I heard the voice of my daughter, Isabel. She was screaming, "Mommy, Mommy!" I could hear her, but I didn't know where the voice was coming from because it was so dark. Then her voice intensified to the point that I literally turned and woke up. Then I saw the doctor holding a resuscitation machine. Then I knew I had almost crossed to the other side, but the doctor did all he could to resuscitate me. Isabel was in the room. She had cried her heart out. At that point, I thought of what would have happened to Isabel if I had passed on. Fidel would probably remarry after some years or even months, but Isabel would have grown up without a mother. My heart was broken. Then the doctor came and broke the worst news, that I had lost the baby in my womb. I couldn't bear it. I broke out in tears. Fidel came in to apologize, but I didn't allow him. Some human rights activists had come to the hospital to hear my story, but I refused to share. I didn't know who told them. I was in the hospital. They even told me to press charges against Fidel, but I refused. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks before I was strong enough to be discharged. Fidel came in several times to apologize. In the end, I told him I had forgiven him, but that it was over. His parents even came to plead on his behalf, but I told them that my mind was made up. From then on, I promised never to look back. My lawyer served him the divorce papers and we were legally divorced. This is not what I wanted. I have always thought of marriage as a beautiful thing, but it turned out to be my worst nightmare. I don't think I would toe that line anytime soon. Isabel is the love of my life and I'm ready to sacrifice everything for her, even if it means remaining single for the rest of my life. Wow. If you have been touched by this story, please leave a comment below and share your thoughts. And if you know someone who seriously needs to see this, please don't hesitate to share it with them. If you're an abuse survivor and you want to share your story with us, you can write in. Our email address is thehopebase@gmail.com. Don't forget, as long as you have breath in your nostrils, you have hope. Till I come your way again next week, my name remains Oise God Center Bode. Have a beautiful day.